without further ado, I'll go ahead and just get our instructor introduced here. So today, we have Laura Knight, who's a realtor out of our Southern Oregon office in Klamath Falls, and she's a solo agent down there. She enjoys being a part of the KW culture, helping her fellow agents succeed, learning the MREA business model, and building a successful career and lifestyle by design. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Laura. Laura, are you ready to go? Oh, oh, whoa, whoa. Are you all seeing that?
Uh-huh.
Doesn't say that she's on mute, but I didn't hear anything that she said.
Yeah, me neither.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Had to switch mics. Sorry. And there goes the video. So does anyone mind if I just don't videotape me? Because I am right here. It's so distracting. And the slides are fine. I just don't know. I just don't know about this. So is everybody else good?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, thank you, Aaron. He's great. He does so much for us. So thank you so much. And let's get started. Well, I'll reclaim host. And we should be recording. All right. Okay, so that way you guys don't have to see that flitter. So how's everyone doing? And do you have any, oh gosh, where's my screen share? So, oh my goodness. Okay, so we're talking timelines today. Is everyone, has anyone had a contract or has a contract going right now? There we go. Okay. So when we do go under contract, there are specific timelines that we need to meet. So we stay in compliance and it helps for a much smoother transaction. So, gosh. I've only done this how many times? Why I'm having technical difficulties. Too much coffee, not enough coffee, not quite sure yet. So anyway, everyone's already talked about their daily successes and everything that they're happy about. And you don't have to stay muted. If you have questions, just shout them out. I have no problem with that because sometimes they come to us. So anyway, we have that. Our timelines, we're going to do our best practices and risk avoidance. That's a lot of what the contracts are for, to make sure your clients understand the timelines and that it's important to meet them. The more they understand, the easier it is to get to close. And there's the 6 core competencies that you've learned throughout. The 5th one is coordinate the sale to closing. It's an essential skill that has made the list of core competencies. It's a skill to be taken seriously because you don't want to drop the ball on that one. So we'll develop a transaction timeline, apply best practices to avoid risks, identify ways to follow up after closing to build our business. It's a great way to keep in touch because people, if they bought a house from you, the odds are they're going to be selling it eventually. And it's always nice to be relevant, stay top of mind. And so as we go through, start thinking about what you're going to learn today and consider what questions you might have. Many times in these classes, people are afraid to ask questions. Don't. I mean, just ask a question. There's no bad on that. So does anyone have questions about where they've gotten so far, or you know, anything that's happening? Euler? Okay, so in your contract, you'll see the different sections. And in each section, you need to pay attention to the contingencies because the contingencies have dates and you need to stay on top of those. I don't know, do you guys have a contract that you've already filled out or played around with at all? Yeah. So have you ever just made a task list on what needs to happen as you go through the contract? Okay.
I've never really done a mock contract. I think back to the times that I've actually been the buyer and then the times I've been a seller. From their perspective of things, I created my own timeline schedule in my phone just to make sure that I was staying on task with my broker.
And in the command system, they do have a task system, and that it's really nice because this way you can go ahead and put it into your command and it will remind you inspections, just to put in inspection deadline date is 9/21 or, you know, any of those. And if you need to add whenever you do in the command, you can check off when you get the thing done. So let's see. I think I jumped ahead on my. So we've got our timelines. And real estate transactions aren't particularly trouble-free. It's a strenuous and trying time that requires all the attention and effort you can command. So by being timely with those timelines, it really doesn't guarantee a smooth transaction, but it does make it easier to get to the close. And that's the name of the game. And it isn't chasing a check, it's doing your job. Someone hires you to sell their house, you want to get to the end. Somebody hires, or you are representing them as a buyer, you want to make sure that they can close on that house. So you try to do as much risk management ahead of time as you can. And it's okay to talk to the lenders. If you're a listing agent and you've got an offer on your property, call that lender, see what's going on and how they're looking. And the same with the buyer's agent. It's okay to call that lender. Matter of fact, they're going to be a good friend of yours during that transaction. So here. Sorry about that. So there's a lot of people that you're going to work with as you get closer to the closing. You have, of course, the lender. You're going to have the title company, inspectors, sometimes contractors to get bids. So start compiling those people right off the bat. And remember, throughout the session, we'll be drafting multiple timelines like contract deadlines, buyer timelines, seller timelines, etc. First, we are going to focus on deadlines in a contract. You'll need the sample contract that you've been using in the previous couple of sessions. First thing you will do is use the contract to plot out the different deadlines related to the contract's contents. You will use the middle timeline to plot out the contract-related deadlines in your participant guide. Does everyone have a participant guide? Okay. So anyway, we'll go over all of those. And what types of deadlines do you have that you've mocked up? Anything? Bueller? No. Okay. So you've accepted your contract, and let's say the inspection period ends by 9/13. So you have this timeline right here for you to make sure you can get your inspection in, review the reports, and if you need to make any repairs, you need to get that addendum in by this date. If you don't, then you just lost out your inspection timeline. The seller no longer has to honor any type of a repair addendum or requests. What you can do, let's say you're at 9/11, you can take, and if something happens where you still haven't gotten all of your inspectors scheduled, is put in an addendum to extend the length of your inspection period and as to why, inspector, got lost hunting or whatever. So, does that make sense? Anybody have questions on that? Okay. So write down as many people, or let's talk about as many people that you can think of in the participant guide, and see how many people you can come up with that are going to be attached to that transaction. And you guys can all unmute yourself. Like pretend we're at a coffee shop. Camera, anything?
So we're writing down just all of the people that are going to be touched in the transaction?
If you want to, or we can just discuss.
Yeah.
It's
I
always
just- I
best to
wanted to
write
make
things
sure that
down,
I
you
remember.
remember.
Yeah, I was just wanting to make sure that I was understanding exactly what it is that we're looking for. So, I mean, just in brainstorming of things, oh my gosh. An inspector, maybe an electrician, a plumber,
Lender,
yeah, a lender, oh my gosh, there's so many.
there's the appraiser,
Mhm.
and Gloria, can you think of any?
Sorry, I wasn't
that's all
listening to the
right.
question. I wasn't listening to the question. I'm on vacation and I'm just listening in. Okay, can you tell me the question again?
Oh, what in the transaction, when you go under contract, who are the people that you are going to be dealing with during the contract? And just to help everybody out, I'll just go ahead and go through the list. So does that help?
Escrow agent.
Correct. You have escrow, you have an appraiser, insurance, especially if you have a cash transaction, make sure your buyer knows to buy homeowners insurance. Property managers, in case you're buying a rental or selling a rental. Tenants, that's a big one right there. Movers, you may need to call to see if your buyer/seller has movers. And as Tamara said, all your different types of contractors, plumber, electrician, roofer, general contractor, all of these things you may need to get bids on, so you can negotiate that contract to get to the close. So, and then family members. Sometimes it's contingent on children helping their parents out or vice versa. So those are all things to take into consideration and wrap your head around when you start walking into these contracts. So that kind of gives you both a list for your buyer and your seller. So, think about how they're all involved in the actual transaction. So let's say you get the inspector and he goes through, he comes in 2 days, gets it done, you get the report, and you realize, and you've got the seller, the buyer's asking for repairs and says in lieu of repairs, we want $20,000. You can pump the brakes and say, wait, and then call up some of the contractors to see what their bids are. And then that way you can navigate and move forward on the contract. Or sometimes people will ask for a new roof when the roof is still okay. It may just need one area to be looked at. So that's why we get familiar with all these people. And like with the agents, even if they're not in your office, you're going to be working with these people time and time again throughout your career. So it's always, you represent your client, but just as always, be kind and courteous to the other agent, but don't be a doormat as well. Your title people, you will, in Klamath, don't laugh, we have one title company. I know. Sometimes we go over the hill and use some of the title companies in Medford if it makes it easier for our clients. But the inspectors, you'll probably get to know 2 or 3 inspectors that you'll like, and you'll use them regularly with the lender right from the get-go. The minute you go under contract for the buyer's agent, make sure that lender gets that contract. And if you're the listing agent, call that lender and make sure they got the contract. So this way they can order the appraiser. So anyway, any questions on that? So what's the first thing that the buyer needs? Anyone?
I would think pre-approval.
Yep. And then from pre-approval, then we'll move into the inspections. We just went over all of that. And always keep in touch with your title officer, your escrow agent, and make sure that you're on track. If you haven't seen your title report come in here with AmeriTitle, sometimes it'll take us 7 to 10 business days. Other title companies, it'll be 3 days. And, you can ask them, how are we coming along on the title report? And when you get that report, if you definitely read it, click the hyperlinks, know what it is your buyer is buying. And if you have the seller, click on there and ask your seller if it doesn't make sense. Did you know this? But if there's any red flags on there to get it taken care of sooner rather than later. If you have questions, call the escrow officer and say, hey, can you explain this to me? And they're more than happy to do so. So anyway, just keep a chronological order of all the things that you need to do on that contract. Any questions on that?
Hi, I have a quick question, please, about title.
Yes.
I was under the impression that we let the buyer directly connect with the escrow officer if they have any questions, or do we have to also read that and just to for liability, you know?
If it is a question about the title, you can refer them to the title officer, but you can also ask for yourself. And in regard to liability, you can ask the title officer or escrow officer, they'll explain it to you. And then you can take it to your client and say, and put it in an email, I spoke to title, this was their explanation. I highly recommend you call them directly so you know. And
Okay.
that's if they have a specific question or anything like that.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
I mean, you want to be helpful, but you always have to keep yourself safe as well.
Yes.
And never, if you don't know, that's the biggest thing. If you don't know something, is we can't know it all, no matter how long you've been a realtor. If you don't know, just say, hold on a minute, let me double check on that. You know, you can say, I don't know if you want to, but you know, things change constantly. Laws, rules, regs, they're always changing. So you can always use something like, it's been a while since I've come across this. Let me double check on that and I'll get back to you. Write yourself a note, make sure you double check on that and then get back to them. Good?
Good, good. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Thank you. So let's flesh out the buyer timeline by thinking through the items that we just plotted. These things right here. We know our deadlines, what is being done to meet those deadlines and who is involved. So let's be sure we have everything covered by thinking about communication needs to happen to accomplish these things. How and when will you communicate deadlines, for example? Are you providing your clients with a timeline of the entire transaction to begin? If so, how will you get this to them? Will you schedule a time to go over it with them? Something that you can do that you can prepare ahead of time is kind of like a flow sheet and with explanations and keep it very generic. And then when you go under contract, you can just make little notations on the side for that specific contract. And, you know, sometimes I put things like that in with my, like if they're signing anything, to put it along with my DocuSign. So this way they have it. And this way, you know, they have it and refer to that if they say, I didn't know this was going to happen. And you can say, well, yeah, don't you remember that sheet of paper? We talked about it with the timeline. It didn't have exact dates at that moment, but this is how it flows, which is exactly what you see here. The inspector, of course, you need to get your earnest money in. Let the listing agent know about your inspection schedule. You know, when you get, you know, that you have, depending on if you're a rural property or if you're in the city with city services. With a rural property, you'll need to get the well addendum. So you need somebody to collect water for potability. You will need to get, some buyers want to know what the well flow is and what the static level is of the well. If they have septic, you need to schedule that by getting the inspector out. And generally, the sellers pay to get the septic cleaned, and the buyer will pay to have the inspection. That's general rule of thumb, but it's what the two different parties decide upon. So, you know, that's something to work on there. And then once you get the inspections, you send your inspection response to the listing agent so they know what to expect. And then this way you can go ahead and move forward. You want to get the inspections done as soon as possible because you would like to get any repairs done before the appraiser comes out. And then, you know, you can always ask for a final walkthrough. So, any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yes.
So different things have different timelines, like say with the lender or with the home inspector and the certified appraisal. Does it come in like you're showing a chart, but it comes in continuum, like you do first the inspector, and then once that's done, you go with the appraisal, right? So
No, from the very first day that you go under contract, get the inspector scheduled ASAP because you want to get that taken care of. At the same time, the lender will put in the order for the appraiser. Depending on where you're at in the state, will dictate how soon the appraiser can come out. So let's say it's a VA and your buyer anticipates having the trim around the front door repainted to meet VA requirements. The appraiser comes out before any repairs are done. The appraiser is going to call that out, that there's flaking paint that needs to be addressed. You try to get ahead of it, so this way the buyer doesn't have to pay for a reinspection from the appraiser to meet the VA requirements. Does that make sense?
yeah, yes.
Okay, sometimes you just can't do it. You know, but that's what you try to do. And in Klamath, it moves a little bit slower than some of the other places throughout all places throughout the state. But we know if it's a VA, we try to get on top of things that we just know we're going to get called. Peeling paint is a big one. So sometimes with conventional, there's not a problem. Your government loans are a little more particular about the quality, the condition of the home. Peeling paint is a big one. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, can I ask another question? So who decides the timeline? The state decides the timeline? Because I know there are 3 days, business days, 7 business days.
Well,
Or
in your contract for the earnest money deposit, it's generally 3 days. Unless you know your buyer is out of town and you need extra time, there's a line on there that you can put in 5 days, 10 days, you know, and explain to your seller as to why you put that in the contract. You know, we just had one with somebody up in Canada, and it was easier for him he wanted to see the home. So it's easier to put the earnest money in, get a lot of things done when he's actually in the States before he flies back out. So that was communicated with the listing agent and everything was fine on that. So that's where communication right here, if you are having an issue and you're coming up on a deadline and something came up, talk to the listing agent, say, we need to put in, or you just put together an addendum and you explain as to why you need, in briefly, not too much detail, as to why you need an inspection done on this day, you know, or to extend that inspection period. And also, let's say you write a contract and it has 3 lots that are being sold together, and in your contract, you only put 2 lots. You miss getting the 3rd one on there. If you write an addendum adding that 3rd lot, make sure you send that addendum to the title company. And of course, you know, keep in communication with the lender. And even as a listing agent, if there's a hang up on the appraisal, you can call the lender and say, what is the timeline on that? When is the appraisal due back? Because sometimes they could, you know, say that they'll be there on the 11th to make the appraisal, but it's not due back until the 22nd. So that's good to know, so you can relay that to your client, be it the buyer or the seller. And then just communicate. A lot of times when people do a home inspection or a pest and dry rot, many times the buyer wants to be there to do a walkthrough with the inspector so he can point out, or he or she can point out exactly what it was that they're calling on the report and explain it while they're there. Yeah, so if there's any amendments to the title, kind of like that previous example, there were 3 lots and only 2 got put onto the contract. The title will then need to put out a new title report. So usually you get 1, sometimes 2 title reports, but if it takes you 5 title reports, each one make sure that your buyer and seller get it, and make sure you put it into your command. Okay, good questions. When am I reminding the buyers to not make big purchases? At the beginning before they go under contract. Do not go out and buy a car, new furniture, anything like that. Just wait till you close, then you can go and spend again. Also communicate to your buyers and sellers when to turn the utilities on and off. And when you are finding a date, a close date, keep in mind of any holidays, like we had Labor Day on Monday. So that doesn't count as a business day. So be aware of that whenever you're looking at home inspections and things like that. So how do you negotiate the inspection report, and how are you communicating that information? Is anyone familiar with houses and reading inspection reports? If ever you get a chance, you can maybe in your offices see if they can invite a home inspector to come in and talk about what it is they do. But if you don't know, talk to the inspector about that and say, hey, this is like my first transaction. Can you help me understand what you're meaning by this? And then I touch base with the lender, the title company, and the listing agent throughout the entire transaction, especially coming up to the deadlines and what we need for them or from them at that time. So what you need for compliance is to figure out, is this an act of communication or a document? The difference being, if you're just sending an email to somebody, or if you've got a document for them, and you can let the listing agent know, hey, on this, the SPD, seller property disclosures, my buyer has a question about line 341 before they sign. So that's a communication about a document. But then once you get that document, get it on in. Any questions? So any of these can change at any time throughout the transaction. This is just a basic guideline of how it's going to be. So here you have when you go under contract, and this is the amount of time you have to get your inspections in, complete, get the report, and reply with a repair addendum if one is necessary. So now we're going to move on to the other side of the transaction. And a seller transaction involves more than just you and the seller. Again, there are many people you're responsible for bringing into the transaction, and it's your responsibility to set high standards and keep them in the conversation loop. So since it's just the four of us, we can just talk freely. Is there one other thing that you can do to, let's say you're out, let's say there's 4 people looking to get a listing. What can you offer to this seller that would help them with their transaction that perhaps the other agents aren't offering? One of those is you could offer a service of that you will hire someone to do a move out clean for them when they vacate the property, things like that. But through this, let your seller know what to expect, that there may be a repair addendum. Don't be offended, but everything is negotiable. Let them know that when the appraiser comes by, this is why doing your comps are important, because if your appraisal comes in low, there is a chance that you can fight to get that value that the contract is stated for. Let's say the house is 300,000, but it appraises at 290. If you have solid comps, you have the opportunity to talk to the appraiser and say, hey, look, or you go through the lender, but these are my comps. They're different than these other comps. And, I want you to reevaluate by my comps. So, any aha moments there?
Yeah, definitely an aha moment for me that you can request from the lender to reevaluate.
Yeah, it happens quickly. Only a couple of days, but you have to get in there and you just, that's why a lot of sellers are still in the mindset that if you could see my hands, that their list is going to be maybe 20K over where it should be. What you can do for strategies is say, okay, we will list it at 325. We will keep it there for 3 weeks. And if we're not getting calls, if we're not meeting where the stats are, then, make sure they agree to it. But then we will drop it down to the 300 and see if we can get more interest that way. Another thing that people are doing right now to help bump their listings is so let's say your seller is selling the house at 325, but offering 10,000 in concessions to the buyer so they can buy down points or help them with their closing costs. Let's say the appraiser comes in and it comes in lower, then you can renegotiate the entire price and how much money you're giving up to the buyer. But the name of the game is to find a win-win on both sides without greed taking over. If you're pretty sure that that house can still appraise at about the 315 with all of that said, then, stand by it. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot of info that comes, and it's not always what's on the little printouts here, but that contract, if you have a hiccup, go to your market center and, talk to your mentor and have them help evaluate how you can not be a hero, but help both sides to understand what the goal is. And let's say an appraisal comes in low, a good line to use on that seller is to say it's really hard to make someone pay more than what a professional has evaluated the home at. But I will give it my best shot and I will fight for you and see if I can put in my comps to have it reevaluating. And it's a 50-50 chance. Either they will reevaluate the value or they're going to stand by their original number. That's the approval. Anything else? So here we have the seller timeline. And what do you see that's different? For starters, you need to go in and you need to mark it as pending. And once you know the inspections, this is another time to go back and let your seller know, hey, look, the inspector's coming in on this day. The buyers may want to do a walkthrough with the inspector. And, you know, don't be offended if they find things that you weren't aware of. That's their job. And it's like a one-time insurance policy. Even if, you know, we want the buyer to be happy and we don't want them to think that you sold them, you know, less than what they agreed for. And that's a nice way to prime your seller. And it's not just a speech, it's truth. Once you get the inspections, let's say the seller is paying for the pest and dry rot, the buyer has the whole home, you can request the entire report from the buyer if they're asking for repairs to be done, or you can ask just for those pages. So, you know, let's say they just want to have the air seal in the window has escaped, so they need to have the windows resealed. You can ask just for that page, or you can ask for the entire report. And just know, once you get that entire report, your seller is now aware of any additional issues that they have. So have that conversation with your seller. And again, when the appraisal happens and you need to let your seller know, they can be in the house when the appraiser is there or not. Sometimes it's easier when they're not there. Sometimes it's easier when they are. So, you know, in case the, let's say again, it's an FHA and they need to look into the crawl space. This way the seller can, you know, just tell them exactly where that crawl space is. And we just went over the low appraisal response. And then when you get close to closing, a few days ahead of time, your seller can sign 3 days prior to closing. Make sure you get their closing statement, read through it, make sure line for line, if they are paying for things, that it's legit. Make sure that your commission and the buyer's commission is correct. And any other expenses that are coming out of the proceeds from that house, double check it and send it to your seller and let them know. A good thing to do for risk mitigation is once you go under contract, to create a seller net sheet. Most all of the title companies have a tool where you can do that. And you create a seller net sheet and it breaks down the taxes, the proration, things like that. And then you can, and just let them know it's an estimate. This gives them a ballpark figure. Let them know that it's not exact because there are variables. And then when they get the final, if they say, well, wait, I didn't know about this or that, then you remind them as you give it to them, remember, this is where I thought you were going to be at, but then we incurred these costs here and here. So this reads well. Are there any other questions on it? Or, you know, you find out from the seller if they have any complaints on that.
With regards to that, do you need to have an account with the title company, or could you just utilize their?
Yeah, they usually ask you
program?
to create a free account. They're more than happy to help. With AmeriTitle, I have with them, and then also with First American, which is in Medford. But they have so many tools that actually do help the realtors. So any additional questions on that? So we've gone over the deadlines, the other parties, the contractors, movers, cleaners, all of that, title company, scheduling and communication with inspectors and buyer's agents, and any amendments, all of that. These are interaction points. And again, just always go through, ask yourself, where are you using the command system? It's great for just going down your checklist of what you need to have. And another thing, it's always nice to keep notes in your command files of your transaction. If you're coming up against something hard, you can put it, you can create a folder for notes. So they're notes to yourself or things that you noticed. So if in case there's any question, you can go back and say, I remember this day because of XYZ. And that is, again, towards risk mitigation. So any ahas? You guys are so quiet. I talk so much. So best practices and risk avoidance. Can you think of anything that's risky? Or your vulnerabilities and what you need to do to protect yourself? Does anyone have a story of whenever they were under contract and you couldn't get to the close? Okay, well, I have one. Went under contract and my seller went ahead and signed contract within 3 hours of receiving. And the following day, the buyer's agent wanted to rescind the offer. And I had to tell the other agent the accepted offer is in her box, and so please send me a termination and as to why within such a short period of time your buyer backed out. What happened was the buyer's deal fell through on the sale of his property, so totally legit. Sometimes, as you know, if a buyer backs out and it isn't under one of the contingencies, which is the seller property disclosures, finance, title report, inspections. So on those points, they can go ahead and terminate and receive their earnest money back. But if they just have a change of heart or they get upset over something, I'm sorry, you lose your earnest money. So make sure your buyers are aware of that. And let the sellers know, yeah, we've been under contract for 5 weeks, but the buyer just lost their job and they can no longer finance. At that point, they get their earnest money back. Any questions? So basically, communicate clearly and often. Communicate with everyone involved in that step of the transaction. If you do have assistants, copy them on the transaction, your documents and things like that, your communications. Set the expectations up front. That's a big one right there, is to let people know and then remind them as you move along. Moving, selling, buying is very stressful, as we've all experienced it. And especially if people are working full-time or dealing with other personal issues, it's great to remind them on a regular basis. Oh, by the way, and, just gentle reminders. It could be a simple text. Remember, today is the 6th and we have an inspection on the 8th. The buyers will be there too. Things like that. And even on the worst of times, just stay professional. Just say, you know what, this is my job. No one promised that it was going to be easy. So if someone's yelling at you, don't yell back. Best way is to lower your voice. And I have learned that sometimes if you just sit and let people go, basically it's like, if you have a horse that you just need to run them out, just let them run. Do the same thing with that client and just listen intently, take notes, and at the end, ask, so what is it you really want? And then find the solution. While they're talking, you can start to formulate, are they just stressed out or is there a solution? What is the solution. 9 times out of 10, there is going to be a solution to where you can still move forward and get to the closing. So when you do that, you remain professional and you operate as their fiduciary, then you're pretty golden. You know, and take your notes and you can input that into your command system. So if anything ever blows back, you can say, this is what happened on this day. This is what triggered the person. This is how I handled it, and keep it at that. Any questions? So, communicate clearly, set expectations, be professional. So does anyone know where the deal is at risk of falling apart? Inspections, appraisal, title,
Fine.
SPDs. Oh, and of course, you know, keeping your job, not buying a car, you know, don't quit your job before closing. For goodness sakes, wait 2 days. But always, in the end, be professional, act in your client's best interest, even when it seems to conflict with your own. So there's that, and live this. Any ahas? Anyone bored to tears? Just kidding. It's okay if you are, because I'm just going to keep talking. No. No, I can't see your faces. Of course, you can't see mine. I think I'm funny so often. Sometimes I actually am. So on referrals and reviews, how can you take this transaction and turn it into a client relationship that brings more business referrals and repeat business? We'll discuss how you can lead gen for more business by leveraging client reviews. You can ask your clients to go ahead and write a referral, you know, yeah, to give it to, oh gosh. I don't know if you have platforms set up where they can give you a review, and there's different ways you can do it. Yeah, you're always looking for new, repeat, and referral business. So if anytime you can get a referral from one of your clients, and the way you do that is just say, hey, do you know of anybody else that might be looking to buy or sell? Sounds cheesy, but you'd be surprised. And your client is more likely to refer others to you and write reviews, which will generate new leads. So in the command follow-up programs and the touch campaigns you leverage after a transaction will help you stay in close emotional proximity with your clients, so they think about you when they are ready to buy or sell again. Many times that's not the case. You get close to your clients and you really do want to keep in touch, but after a few years, you're like, wow, that's a lot of people to talk to on a regular basis. So automation does come in handy. And what it is, it's staying front of mind as you move forward. And it's not beating them over the head with 15 emails a week unless they ask for it. It's mostly just a gentle reminder that, you know, during the holidays, before the holidays, in, you know, whatever time of year it is. And a great way is, let's say business is slow, you need to prime your pump. Get in your phone, go through your contact list, and just send a simple text. For me, what's worked is, hey, I've been busy, haven't heard from you in a while. How is everything going? And then just listen. It's not, do you know anybody? I'm looking to buy or sell. None of that. Just genuine, what's up? And you'd be surprised that your phone starts ringing and people start thinking for you, oh, well, I know John down the street. He was talking about it. Do you want to put together a CMA form or something? So that's great. And our command system is wonderful in regard to all of the marketing tools that they have there. So the most important practice with referrals can't be stated enough. Ask, always ask, and then offer a value, and don't forget to ask. I mean, it's just, it's a thing. You know, these things right here. You're looking for repeat business, referral business, and client reviews. So, any questions on that? So there are things that you can say, like my business relies on referrals. If you know anyone that is looking to buy or sell, I'd be so grateful if you could let me know. I would appreciate the opportunity to help your friends and family buy or sell their homes. I intend to build a relationship of trust between us so that when you think of real estate, you think of me. And I usually get people laughing when I don't use these verbatim, but something close to that. I just remind them that, you know, I'm a good realtor. Why go anywhere else? If you wouldn't mind, please tag me on social media anytime one of your friends posts about needing a real estate agent. That one I get now and again. I am going to offer you an amazing service for you to refer me to your friends and family. If you don't, I'm going to feel I did something wrong and would need to talk to you about it to do better. You know, sometimes you can ask someone that. That's one that I'm not particularly comfortable with, but everybody needs to find what vibes with them and then just get comfortable in it. That's why doing script practice and rehearsing these things over and again, it really, it makes a difference. So yeah, just let people know that being a strong fiduciary, the local expert of choice, and exhibiting unmatched customer service leads to great reviews. Reviews can be leveraged on places like social media and your agent site. They not only communicate what it is like to work with you, they can also generate new leads. So a lot of it is just reminding people without beating them over the head. I am here. I am good. Let me help you. You need help. Let me be the one to help you. As we've discussed before, the most important thing you can do to get reviews is to give value through your communication and the relationship and to ask for the review. Start every relationship by letting the client know that you will ask for their 5-star review. A transaction is not just the transfer of money and property or a commission check. Every transaction is a series of opportunities to be of service to your clients. When you give them excellent service and stay in close emotional proximity through follow-up and touch campaigns, they will reward you with repeat business, referrals, and great reviews. So, any ahas out of that? Do you guys know what AHA is? Agents helping agents. Is that a first? Agents helping agents? Okay.
That's the first to me.
Yeah, and that's what it's about. And in these, you know, I know that I'm here to talk to you guys, hopefully not at you, but with you about these things. And you may, Tamara, you're well versed in buying and selling, but it's still some of those other things that you forget, you know, so it's nice to just have gentle reminders of how things work and what the process is. But anytime, again, if you guys have any questions, just shout out, interrupt. It's more than, that's the whole point, is to interact and help you guys. So
Let me segue. I am so
Okay, yeah.
not an expert. I just remember I'd always been, this is part of my pre-real estate journey, right? Was that I've always loved real estate. So when I was buying and I was selling and then I was buying again, I was extremely invested in the process because I was curious about it. So I saved, I think I still have all of my documents. I never got rid of anything. Because it's just, I can go back and I can review
cheat sheet.
what communication was like.
And utilize your office. You are in an
Much
office
sickness.
with a bunch of experts. And the one thing that I can say hands down through experience is I have not been in a brokerage that helps as much as Keller Williams. Of course, I can't speak for all the offices around the world, but what I can say is in our network, everybody has been so helpful and so kind, and everyone's rooting for you to succeed. And that's a wonderful feeling, so everybody's here to help. And now we'll get back to like business. Meh, yawn, no, just kidding. Staying the real estate expert of choice is all about staying in relationships with your clients. You're going to stay in a relationship with a customized 36 touch plan for your new buyer or seller. And a lot of the touches can and should be the same as your general 36 touch plan for your sphere. Are you guys familiar with the touch plans with your command system? If your market center is giving a class on that, I highly recommend it. It helps you with your automation, and especially in the beginning, you can start building it. And then later, when you get so busy and so successful, you're already automated, you're familiar with the system, and then you can just go click, click, click. But command system is a wonderful system. But anyway, because you've given them a great buying and selling experience, these are the people who are most likely to offer your referrals of friends, family, neighbors, coworkers, etc. So be sure that your touch plan has you asking for referrals. First, let's talk about the buyers. Put yourself in a buyer's shoes for a minute. What would you find helpful in the first year of owning a new home and like to get from your agent? What would bring value to your life and ownership? Housewarming gift that showed that they know me. So you could actually brand, you'll probably see them, cutting boards with your brand on there, knives, anything like that. You could actually get a little sign established on the date that they purchased, the month and year, and then a little logo at the bottom, your logo. Any documents to help with the taxes. Because, around the beginning of the year, you can always reach out and say, hey, did you need anything about the purchase or the sale of your home? If you need any documents, I have them in my file. You can introduce, especially people moving into your area, introduce them to dentists, doctors, stylists, mechanics, gyms, all of those things. When people don't know, there are times that with people that are new to Klamath Falls, I'll set a day where I can drive them around town and show them the medical area where the college is, depending on what their interests are. If they want to know where Lake of the Woods is, we will drive out to the Lake of the Woods and have lunch. It takes the entire day, but it's worth it. I look at it all as one, it's fun. Two, it's great for marketing, and they remember that. But you guys don't have to do stuff like that. It's just me because I'm weird. Acknowledgement of buying the house, send them an anniversary card or a little gift. It could even be a packet of seeds, depending on when it could be any time of the year. Just let them know when to plant. Care calls. Anytime, unfortunately, with the sadness in Hawaii, to reach out to any of your Hawaiian anybody that has people in Hawaii, you can just send them a text. I hope everyone's okay, and genuinely mean it. And then equity updates. Every 3 months, you can say this is where the market is at. And then you can also do updates on the neighborhood sales. And that is a great way to farm the neighborhoods. Also, notice of community events that are coming up. You can let people know, hey, do you know that the Rendezvous Art Show is out at the Running Y next week? It's really fun. It's a great get together, or we have this speaker in town, the county fair, whatever. Just remind people and give them a few details. You don't have to market them at that point and say, hey, do you know of anyone? Because it's going to happen naturally, and it's always sign off as your favorite realtor. Okay, don't, because they might not they might think that you're a little stuck on you. Anyway. So how about in 6 or 7 years after they buy, how would your touches start being a bit different and why? So that would that's when you would get to the current values of the existing home, interest rates, knowing their dreams from your Ford conversations, such as they intend to retire to the mountains. Often sellers are buyers also, so their plans will look the same as those we just discussed. Let's say a seller moves away from your area. Do you just take them off your touch plan? Nope. What can you do to still stay in contact with them? You can contact them about general acknowledgments of birthdays and holidays, tax docs, a gift of something they liked from where they used to live, like a particular type of coffee or an ornament or, you know, a little souvenir from something that goes on. And updates on the neighborhood or area changes or celebrations if they were long-term residents. And that is a great way because you never know if they're going to move back, but they just about always still have friends in the area that they moved away from. And that's why we stay in touch with a seller who's moved away. There's referrals. And they trusted you as their advisor. They can seek you out for advice on a local agent for themselves and those they know in their new location, and you will earn a referral fee. So yeah, always, it doesn't matter where they're at, you can find them a realtor in that area. Some people are particular, they want to meet the people and everything else. So that's when you're like, that's fine, but just in case, here's the realtor. I've spoken to them. They're in South Carolina. They're fantastic. And they not only cover this area, but they've lived in this area for 20 years or what have you. So in addition to staying in contact with your client and building those referrals, you should ensure you're continuing a positive relationship with your co-agents. So if you have a referral, you know, get to know them. And when you close on a house, send a thank you note. Doesn't have, with a $5, well now, a $10 coffee card. You don't have to, but it's a nice way to say thank you. Thank you for the business, or thank you for taking care of my friend/client. And then also learn from, you know, if they're more experienced or anything like that, learn by it. So what else are you doing whenever you're building a relationship? Building a downline, getting referrals, learn more about different areas, and you can learn how their specific geographic location works. So did you guys cover profit share in an earlier session? Okay, so every agent that comes over to KW and indicates that you were the reason goes into your profit share downline. That means that for every transaction where their market center makes money from them doing business, you make money from their business. So if you work with an agent at another brokerage that you enjoyed working with and you think they could benefit from KW, give their information to your team leader and follow up with them in a professional and friendly manner yourself. You can say something like, I really enjoyed working with you. Do you mind if my market center leader gives you a call to say thank you? You can build a group of great agents around you and build your passive income through profit share. What are some good ways to follow up with your co-op agent after a closing? Thank you card. Invite them in for a training. That's always good. I don't know about your area, but I know in this area, nobody trains the way Keller Williams does. And that's one of the reasons I love being with Keller Williams. You can send them a book, and we've done that. Give them the MREA. It's a great book. I've actually given that book to people that they'd have no interest in becoming a realtor, but it has great business models And if they are in their business reading that book and you have your little sticker with your name and number on there and you're Keller Williams agent, they can always say, oh yeah, you know, Irene gave it to me, or Tamara gave it to me. Liza's the best, you know, look at this book she gave me. So that all, you just can't go wrong. And share information that would be valuable to them. Any conclusions or ahas on that? Okay, so each day in Ignite, you grow in how you think, feel, act, and implement what you've learned. From learning and ahas, you move towards achieving your big life. And that's what we're here for, right? Kind of learn a little more to fulfill our big goals. How do you feel about our objectives now that we're done? We set out to develop transaction timelines, apply best practices to avoid risk, identify ways to follow up after closing to build our businesses. When you leave today, what action do you think you should take? Will you send a thank you card to an agent you recently worked with? Create a more detailed timeline for your current transaction? Input checklists into opportunities? Or all of the above? You can start playing in your command right now with marketing. You can get your marketing set up with just the people you know. Take all of the contacts from all of the businesses, all the places we've been, even if it's family and friends, say, hey, look, I'm doing a beta test on this platform that I'm using. So do you mind if I use you as a guinea pig? Start sending it out, start getting it tuned up, because, you know, again, you go to the MREA, and you start following the system. It actually works. You'll get busy. You'll start selling houses. Communication is key. Communicate with your market center. Everyone is there to help you. You know, so any questions right now? So taking time to reflect on what you've learned is important in building your confidence and celebrating your growth. We'll do this activity after each learning session so you can keep track of your learning journey. Now we can move to our important daily success system time, where we work in our business together while supporting one another. What has changed for you with just this session? Is there anything you can walk away with right now after sitting in on this class? You feel differently, or has this helped give being a realtor, making it any more meaningful?
It's helping all the pieces come together.
Come again?
Definitely. This is definitely helping all the pieces come together. And when you come in, it's, you know, you're drinking from the fire hose of knowledge and hoping that as much of it will stick. And it can be really overwhelming. So this is kind of it. It's bringing everything together that we've been learning.
Super, thank you.
Mhm.
And again, a lot of people don't interact in the classes, and it's okay to interact, you know, and any questions, you know, I'm an AMA kind of person, ask me anything, be prepared, because I usually will answer. So yeah. So by doing the Ignite, by having these classes, it gets you thinking. It makes you aware of the tools. It changes the way you feel about real estate, and understand real estate is your business. You aren't so much working for your principal broker. You're not working for the network. It's all included, but you're working for yourselves. This is your business. So, you know, lean into it and make it yours, own it. And, you know, just be dedicated. How can I be better? Even if I took a step back today, I know tomorrow I'm going to take 2 steps forward. And all the resources through Keller Williams, through the market centers, through your fellow agents, everybody is here to help. So just I don't know. I'm so grateful and pleased to be part of Keller Williams, and I'm not just, telling stories. It's awesome. So do you have any successes that you want to share? Has anyone been calling their sphere or even written down who's in their sphere of influence? Does anybody ever do role playing?
Yeah, that is actually something that I would like to do with, if anyone in my center would be available, like with the new agents.
There's also recordings through the Keller Williams system that even if they're past recordings, you can listen in on them and get an idea of you say something enough until it becomes who you are. So it's practicing, they're conversations. We used to call them scripts, but they're conversations, and then you tailor them to your own personality. So there's classes on that, but there's so many recordings. Even if there isn't anyone immediate that meets your schedule, play those recordings and you can pause them and think, well, what would I say? And then listen to what, how it goes back and forth. And in training classes, they're great. So, so pretend I'm a seller. How would you get my business? Or let's say we're in the grocery store and I'm on the phone with my bestie saying, yeah, I really want to move to Eugene. But I don't know who I would talk to. How would you approach me once I hung up the phone?
I would probably log into my command and then look for somebody or an agent in the area where she's looking at and refer her to an
So what
agent down
area are you in?
there. Hillsboro,
Okay,
Sunset Corridor.
so let's say I was in Hillsboro. How would you approach me in the grocery store if I just hung up the phone after you overheard that conversation?
I would probably say, hey, I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I kind of heard that you're looking for a realtor or property that's in the area.
Yeah, and that's it. And, the first few times you do that, I don't know about you guys, I get a little nervous. I feel like I'm ready to toss cookies, but I do it anyway. And then you do it enough and then you become obnoxious and never shut up. And I listen in on conversations, or what I've done to drum up business is I have taken my sign, put it under my arm and walked through Home Depot acting lost, looking for an H frame and, stopping people saying, hey, can you tell me where I would find a frame for this sign? And I would hold it up for people to read it. Now it sounds silly, but it was a confidence builder. So I needed to do that. And, people noticed and people said, Keller Williams is in Klamath Falls. Oh yeah, we've been here for a year. Here's my card. There's all sorts of things that you can do to step outside your comfort zone and start practicing. So when the real deal comes up, and like if we were in the grocery store, you can just say, hi, I couldn't help it over here. My apologies, but you need help and I'm a realtor. Here's my card. Anything I can do to help you look for a home or sell your home, don't, and give stats, know your stats. Know your neighborhoods, and just the more data you give somebody in small sentences, they will gravitate. And I usually say something after I do all that, and Or I'll have people ask me if they find out I'm a realtor because I wear my name badge in public all the time. And they'll say, oh, I'm under contract with such and such, and I have questions. And I hate when people interfere with my transactions. So I just politely say, oh, I would love to help you. That realtor is a great realtor, but I really don't want to interfere since I have nothing to do with that contract and I don't want to muddy the water. But outside of that, if you know of anybody else who's looking to buy or sell, I'd be more than happy to give my opinion on. How does that, does that resonate? So, okay, so
think
we're going
absolutely,
over
yes.
the daily success system. And the purpose is to develop the mindset, skills, and tools that you need to build relationships and secure an appointment with a potential buyer seller. At this point, you may be going on appointments, getting agreements signed, and even getting deals closed. If you have achieved any of these, you'll want to track your progress on them using the Daily Success System Tracker, which includes your 10 conversations with your sphere, people you know and who know you, 10 contracts added to your database, contacts, not contracts, name, phone, address, and more. Handwritten notes, express gratitude, or let people know you are in real estate and appreciate referrals. You can actually write a letter to all your friends with your business card in there stating that, you know, hey, you're a realtor now and you would love to answer any of the real estate questions. Just at the very bottom, put on your footer that it's not a solicitation for a listing. So, you know, it's just a letter. And then utilize your 10-5-1 model for social media engagements. Other enrichment offered at the end of each lesson and participant gate. Okay, so yeah, you guys have all of that. Be accomplishing most of these goals during your daily success system. Keep doing these activities outside of class time as well. Work with your accountability partner if you have one, and have fun. And if you don't have a partner to work with, be it a friend. You know, have your friend just start putting you through your paces on weird questions, or talk, you know, just have your friends listen as you talk about real estate. You know, if you get your TMO reports, read it out to your friends, read it to yourself. Oh, did you know this? Did you know that? And it starts to sink in. And again, we need to remind everybody about the Do Not Call and the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. So make yourself familiar with that. So does anybody have any questions on the TCPA? This thing, the Do Not Call list? Everyone still there?
Still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still
I don't know
here.
what happened to my screen. So anyway, so you guys are familiar with the TCPA, the Do Not Call list.
Yeah,
Always check, and the market centers always have that for you. And does anyone have any questions, anything at all that they want to express? Let's see if I can get this video on. There I am. Let's hope it doesn't go freaky. But does anyone have any questions? Anything you want to know? What's it like living in Klamath? Who scared me to make my hair white? I don't know. Anything. Any questions that you want to go over to review the timelines, contracts? Well, I am on Facebook. If you guys are on Facebook, just Laura Knight, friend me. And if you have questions as you go through, I don't mind helping you, or if it's a principal broker question, then I don't mind saying, hey, I would love to help you, but that's between you and the principal. That's legally risk mitigation right there. But hey, how do I say this to my buyer? How do I say this to my seller? I can give you my opinion on that, and I don't mind helping out. Or I have a question, what should I put on the contract online? Whatever. How do I fill it out? Things like that. If you don't have people in your market center, or if you live out remotely and you need someone to talk to, it's part of it.
I'm sorry, you mentioned something earlier about a flow sheet.
Yeah. So you could actually take in your handbook to get to the close, and where it has like the timelines on there, you can do something that's generic for yourself when you go under contract, who the buyer is, who the seller is, your contact numbers. Don't give away the other side's contact numbers, but you can make this flow sheet for you and then edit a copy for your clients on the timelines. Inspections, appraisal, who the lender is. Then as it progresses, if you have well, septic, solar panels are big right now. There is an addendum for that, and you need to find out if they still owe on their solar panels or if they are free and clear. And if you're paying top dollar on a house and the people just put solar panels on the year previous, you're probably looking at a big fat commitment to pay off the solar panels. So you need to get that information. But going back to the timeline, you write it out. You can go into your command, and under like on a listing, it will have what you need to have. And then under contract, you will get all of those documents. And those are the things that you need to have for compliance. You can use that as a rule of thumb. And you can give that to your buyer seller right after you go under contract, or when they're signing the sales agreement. Say, and this is what's going on. That help?
Okay, yeah, it helps. Mhm.
Okay. I know, I ramble on. Anything else? Okay, well, I guess this is a first. I actually ended early. I guess that's what happens whenever my video isn't jumping all around. I've asked others and they just don't know why on this one. And I don't know if it's bandwidth or if when it gets too large that it just starts skipping. But I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for sitting through class, putting up with me. And again, Laura Knight, if you have any questions, if you want my number, it is 541-331-1729. And you can always text me, hey, what do I do? Or you can hit me up on Facebook. There it goes. I'm frozen with a goofy face. Okay. So I think we'll just go ahead and conclude.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so
Appreciate your time.
much. I appreciate it, Tamara and Irene and anybody else who already jumped off. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.